Families of public school students complained that the voluntary prayer of Almighty God contributed to their religious belief. So in 1962, the case of Angel versus Vital was brought up. The plaintiff argued that opening the school day with such a prayer violated the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. With Hugo's black opinion and a 6-4 vote, the court ruled that any government established prayers in school was found unconstitutional, and it argued against the Establishment Clause. They also stated that it violates any religion that recognizes Almighty God.
About 40 years ago, Texas was gifted a 6-foot monument of the 10 Commandments, and at the state's own expense, it was shipped to Austin and was placed between the state capitol and the state Supreme Court. Now, the people believe that this was a breach of separation of church and state, and so they took it to court. And after multiple trials in smaller courthouses, it eventually reached the Supreme Court, and the case was then known as the Van Orden versus Perry case. The Supreme Court allowed the state of Texas to leave up the monument due to a 5-4 majority vote, and the monument still stands there today. About 6 years ago, in McCreary County, Kentucky, an engraving of the 10 Commandments was put outside the county courthouse in Whitley City. The American Civil Liberties Union of Kentucky said that putting up the 10 Commandments outside of the courthouse was unconstitutional, so they took it to court. And after several trials in smaller courthouses, it was then taken to the Supreme Court, and by that time it was known as the McCreary County versus ACLU of Kentucky case. The American Civil Liberties Union of Kentucky said that there was no reason to keep up the 10 Commandments outside of the courthouse, and since they went into as much detail as saying it was the King James Bible version of the 10 Commandments, that it was a definite breach of separation of church and state. But in McCreary County's defense, they pleaded the same as the Van Orden versus Perry case back in the 70s, saying that it influenced law and just because of that reason. The Supreme Court made the decision in June of 2005 to have the 10 Commandments removed because it was unconstitutional.
The 1920s, various fundamentalist religious groups lobbied for a law that would ban the teaching of evolution in public schools, linking it with atheism. A man by the name of John Scopes was quickly convicted under the Butler Act after admitting to teaching the theory of evolution in his biology class. A lawyer by the name of Brian Williams served as the lawyer for the prosecution, with the lawyer known as Clarence Darrow representing the defense. All this came to a head when, during final summations, Darrow's, knowing that Brian had planned to deliver what he called his fire and brimstone anti-evolutionist fundamentalist speech, did not let Brian get final summations by not speaking himself. After about 9 minutes of deliberation, the jury came back with a guilty verdict and ordered Scopes to pay a $100 fine. The case would never be tried again, and the ruling left unanswered. Redux! Though the Battle of Tennessee was over, the fight against evolution continued. In Arkansas, they passed their own anti-evolution statute, which was virtually identical to the Butler Act. Only this time, Arkansas high school teacher Susan Epperson brought the case to Arkansas court. Creationists, not to be deterred, then responded by proposing a series of equal time or equal treatment laws, which eventually made their way to the Supreme Court, where it was decided that the teaching of creation sciences in public schools was unconstitutional. The teaching of intelligent design in public schools is still being hotly debated in the lower courts, but the Supreme Court's ruling still stands to this day.